Hi there, everyone. I hope you can hear me okay. If you can give me the thumbs up. We've been having some interesting technical difficulties. Right before we're supposed to go on, there was my internet decided to just stop working, so I had to switch over to a different computer. So thank you for the thumbs up, so I know that all of you can hear. Excellent. I'm so happy that you're here. And I feel like I just need to take a moment so I can catch my breath, literally running from room to room, getting everything ready. But I am super glad to be here. And sadly, this is our last parent chat for the series for the semester. And I cannot believe that we are almost at the end of 2023. I'm not going to cut it short. We've got already we have 3-4 weeks left, I guess. So I'm not going to say it's over, but we are nearing the end. And for all of you, you've only got a couple weeks left where your kids are in school before you get a break, which is always wonderful, right? So tonight, I was trying to figure out what should we end the year with? What would be a good one? And lots of things came up. But what I've been hearing a lot about is friendship drama, friendship issues, which is actually no surprise because, wait, one second. Can you guys see me also? Because I'm just seeing like another screen. Hopefully you can see me. Yes, okay, great. So let me take 1 second just so I can make sure I've got everything here. Okay, now I'm seeing them. Okay, thanks for letting me know. So this is why I wanted to do friendship drama, because I've been hearing a lot about people having social issues, and our kids really, really had some issues because of the pandemic, that they were in isolation, they had certain bubbles, certain cliques that they had to stick with. And it's not like this happened yesterday, but we're still seeing the effects because this happened when all of your kids were in an extremely vulnerable position where it was supposed to be a time of growth, a time of social development, a time of individuating from you. And what happened was the pandemic, and it kind of shut everything down and really put a damper and a pause on a lot of the social development. I would love to know in the chat, while I'm getting my slides up, is this something that you've seen? And it might not be even in your own children, it might be in others in their social circle. Have you seen a difference in what you would expect them to kind of be like at this point socially? So put that in the chat box. I'd also like to know how old your kids are. That will kind of guide my discussion with you tonight of what kinds of things that we're talking about. Okay, let me pull up my other screen here as you're doing that. There we go. Okay, and also I want to let you know, if you have boys, if you have sons, don't worry, this is girl drama, but a lot of it is just friendship issues. I didn't change my whole slide deck for it because it was just, everything is so relevant. There's a few slides that are very specific to girl drama, but most everything we're going to talk about is very relevant, whether you have girls or boys, non-binary, it doesn't matter. This is about how you support them, which is so, so important. We want to make sure that the support that you're offering to your kids is empowering them. It's not just about getting through a situation, it's actually about giving them the skills they need to thrive in that particular situation, but also in the future. All right, and I know that many of you have been coming to the parent chats, and I love that we have a lot of familiar names that are joining us every time that we have a parent chat, which I absolutely love. But for those of you who you might have been joining me but don't actually know what I do outside of parent chat, I wanted to give you a really quick rundown so that you understand what I'm bringing to this conversation, and the fact that the stuff I'm talking to you about isn't just me deciding on, hey, let's do it this way. There's lots of experience that I'm bringing to the table. So I have about 30 years of experience in the field of psychology, and I started out in research and took this windy path, and then started TeenWise. I wanted to fill the gap between really serious issues happening and the everyday issues where nothing was going wrong, I wanted to come to you in a place where everybody needs support on this, and friendships is definitely one of those things. And then you've probably seen me on Parent Chat, so I love to volunteer in the community. This is one of those things that I do in the community. And then lots of writing and blogs and all of that fun stuff. So I have a master's degree in counseling psychology. I'm a coach and all of that, yada, yada. But the thing that really allows me to come to you humbly and with lots of experience is the fact that I have 3 kids of my own who are now 20, 23, and 25. And we're still connected. They're still standing. They're stronger than ever. And they went through a lot of friendship ups and downs, just as many of your children have gone through or will go through or perhaps are going through right now. So the one thing I will promise you is that I'm not going to judge you. So any questions you have, please bring them up. You can put those in the Q&A box. That's where it keeps them nice and tidy. And I'm going to be asking you things along the way. So feel free to put your answers in the chat box. And that just allows us also to connect instead of me feeling like I'm speaking at you. I know that's kind of weird since we are in a webinar format, but it allows me to know you're there. It's not just me speaking to the wind. So I'm here with no judgment, lots of info and an open heart. So one thing I would like to offer to you is if we don't get your questions, you can jump into my Facebook group. You can enter that through this QR code here. And there's also a lot of information that I continually put out in that group for parents to empower their daughters specifically who are going through girl drama and friendship issues, whether it's no friends or just lots of drama. You can jump in there too, and I'll make sure that we kind of send that out at some point too. All right, so let's talk girl drama. And again, remember, if you've got sons, don't worry, you're still going to learn a lot. So this right here, this is me. This is me when I was about 13-ish. And it was a time when I personally felt very rejected and very alone and extremely confused. I grew up in a really small town in Texas. Do we have anybody else from Texas here? We have a lot of Texas transplants in this area. So I grew up in a really small town, and we actually could walk off campus to go to lunch. But we only had so much time and the restaurants weren't close, so we had to like really scramble, really like run, right? We had to have our plans ahead of time. So I had a couple of friends that I made friends with in middle school. I had gone to an elementary school, had a BFF, but then we went to different schools. Some of your kids have probably experienced that. So I had to make new friends. And so I thought these girls were great friends. And there was one day I said, are we going to go to lunch? They said, no, we're going to stay on campus and study. And that wasn't the case. So when lunch came around, I actually saw them getting in a car with one of their parents and going off to lunch without me. So I was crushed because they had lied to me. And then all of my thoughts, of course, like just start swirling that they don't like me, they don't want to be my friends. And then it just kept going, I'm not good enough, and on and on and on. So their actions made my thoughts start swirling. And sadly, I didn't know how to handle it. So what happened was we just stopped talking. We stopped being friends. I laugh. This is Doritos because I used to go to the corner store and get Doritos and Tab for lunch. That is so disgusting now that I'm saying that, but so yeah. So this is in that moment, I wish I had someone to tell me, hey, here's what to do. Or I wish that my parents were there to support me to say, hey, why don't you talk to your friends about it? Why don't you ask them what was up? Instead, the friendship just dissolved. And what can often happen in that situation is there's becomes the girl drama. So I could have started bad mouthing these girls. I didn't, but that might happen if someone's rejected. Or I just tried to turn people against them. There's so many things that happen when kids don't have the skills to talk to each other when they're upset. And as we all know, like these emotions are high when the kids are older and in elementary too also. So for those of you who have young kids, this is all relevant too. It's just the dynamics change a bit when they hit middle and high school. but they need to know how to talk to each other, how to voice their needs, their wants, their concerns. And so many times they don't do that, and it just ends up in drama, unfortunately. I'm really curious if you think back to your own friendship years of like middle school, high school, and elementary school. Do you remember those times when your friend let you down, or maybe somebody said something harsh to you, or you lost a friendship? These things really stick with us. They're really part of who we are. And it makes me think of this time I was teaching, it was a bunch of Girl Scout troop leaders, and we were talking about friendship. And I asked, I wanted them to go back and think about their own friendships. And one of the moms started crying, like really crying, and was vulnerable and brave enough to share with us that she was crying because she realized that her experiences that she had as a middle schooler were still affecting her. And she was 40 something. They were still affecting her and how she related to the women around her. She was still waiting for that person to let her down or to be mean to her or to backstab her. She had carried this baggage with her. So I'm telling you that because I want you to know how important these experiences are for your kids right now. And they don't always seem like, oh, it's really not a big deal. But to them, it's actually helping to form their identity and helping them to form the way that they see friendships and relationships. And that's why it's so important that you are supporting them from a place of wanting to empower them rather than just to fix it. Okay, so I want to ask you a question. I know your time is valuable. Time is the most valuable resource. You can't buy more of it, right? So I want to ask you, what brings you here tonight? What is there some drama going on right now? Are there friendship issues? What's going on? And that just allows me to know how to help you best. By the way, if you want to post anonymously, like maybe you're like, I don't want everyone to know this is going on, you can at the very bottom, there's a little arrow in the chat box. Instead of everyone, you can click on that and you can just choose hosts and panelists. And so I won't say your name out loud if you choose that, all right? Okay, so let me take just a second. Let me see, 13 middle school boys, 5th and 3rd grader, 11-year-olds. Much less social now than I would have thought. Yeah, isn't that interesting? 18, 15, and 9. And that's like a wide spectrum, right? Let's see. Moved to Washington this year. My 6th grader doesn't want to talk to anyone or make friends at school. Yeah, really frustrating, right? Definitely connect with me. Okay, DM me. We can talk about that. And 12-year-old twin boys that kind of compete for friends. Yeah, I hear a lot of that for twins, especially if one's more introverted and one's more extroverted. There's a lot of interesting dynamics there. 13-year-old boy, very happy some days and sad and sensitive some days. Boys, we got a lot of boys on tonight. I'm glad you're here. Glad you're here. All right. In 1 second, let me check the Q&A box. Okay, I will answer that question in the Q&A box. Don't worry, I will get to that. Okay, thank you, by the way, for typing in the chat box. I'm going to be asking you more questions, so keep that chat box warm. Okay, so we're going to talk again. We're going to start off. This is going to sound very girl specific, but there's only a couple slides, so hang in there because then we're going to get back to more general. But I want to touch upon what girl drama is first, because if we're going to talk about something, we need to know what we're talking about. Many of the things that I would call girl drama or relational aggression, also you will see in male friendships too, but there's some things that are just seen more often in the female friendships. So, but girl drama encompasses a lot of stuff, right? And I also want to say that when I say drama, whether it's girl drama, friendship drama, boy drama, it's not to minimize what they're going through. In fact, it's quite the opposite. If you think about a theater and you step onto a stage, which is drama, right? You join the drama club. Everything is bigger. Your hand gestures are bigger, right? Your voice is louder. Everything is bigger. The emotions are bigger. Everything is bigger. And that's why I use the word drama, because for our kids, their emotions are bigger. And so when their emotions are bigger, their perception of what's happening is more dramatic. It's more intense. And so we just have to keep that in mind, that when we're talking about this stuff, it's big. To us as adults, we're looking like, what is going on? This is like not necessary, but it's how they see it, how they feel it, how they experience it. It is dramatic. So I want to ask you, when you think of girl drama or just friendship drama, what kinds of things come to mind? You can put that in the chat box for me. And what kinds of things come to mind when you think of drama? And you might think of things your own kids are going through. You might think of things that you went through, or just in general, what it is. Okay, let's see. Ooh, okay. We have a 7th grader on here. That's awesome. I love that. Okay, I don't love what you're having to go through. She private messaged me, but yeah, we're gonna talk about some of that stuff. So I'm glad you're here. Oh, there's some bullying going on. Yeah. Yeah, sometimes there's toxic friendships. There's negative stuff going on in friendships that your daughter doesn't realize, and you know why? Because she hasn't experienced this before. She is learning how to have healthy friendships. So it's very important that if you do see your daughter's in toxic friendships, if she's in unhealthy friendships, this also goes for dating. If any of your kids are dating, that they understand what's healthy and unhealthy. Because if they don't, they just experience it as that's how it is. That's how life is. Yeah. Mean kids putting others down to boost their social status. Oh my gosh, that happens all the time. Jealousy, absolutely. There's so many things. All right, so let me show you my slide here that has, this isn't even all of the stuff. This is just some of the stuff. And this is not just girls either. As we all know, this is also boys. So there's passive aggressive behaviors, which is like, you don't just outwardly do it, right? It's something kind of behind the scenes. Ignoring someone, and I mean full-blown ignoring, like someone's talking to you and you're looking the other way, acting like you don't even hear them. Ghosting, which is on electronics usually. So you're texting someone all the time, and then all of a sudden it's crickets. No friends at all. That goes into this girl drama. Rumors, the oops, I forgot. And this is, they have, like, they go to the mall or something, and oops, I forgot to invite you. Excluding them on purpose, climbing the social ladder, which is what someone was mentioning. No room at the table. This is lunchtime. Lunchtime is a time, it's like magnifying what the friendship issues are. Lunchtime is awful when you don't have friends or when you're having issues with your friends. The football effect, which is when two people, when they're upset with each other, instead of talking to each other, they talk to another person who talks to another person, and then they are choosing sides. Very often this makes the initial or the original issue much bigger than it ever was. Mean looks, fear of missing out, the just kidding, so that's teasing, but then when you're called out on it, just kidding, and the split personality. And this is when someone treats your child really well in one situation, maybe one-to-one, and then treats them extremely different in a group situation, like belittling, putting them down, ignoring, all of those things. Any of this sounding familiar to what you've been going through, witnessing? Yes. And as I said, boys can do all of these things as well. It's not just girls. Now, one of the reasons we're taking the time to do this, and we wanted to put it in the parent chat lineup, is because it has such an effect on their mental health, but also on them and their development. As I mentioned before, it's not something that's just right now. It's something that they are learning. This is how relationships are. So there's so many effects, like the lower self-esteem, withdrawal. They begin to build an emotional wall, so they don't let people get in. They don't become vulnerable. They don't share their true self and their emotions. They avoid connection with people because they've been burned too many times. Their identity becomes one that is, I'm not friendable, I'm not worthy of a friend, or I'm not likable, I'm annoying. People treat me horribly. Their whole identity becomes, it's their job to develop who they are and how they relate to people. These friendships or lack of friendships develop into who they are. they become a pessimist about friendships. There's lifelong patterns that stick around with them. There was actually some research that people who were popular or not popular went into their adult life with the feeling of people are going to like me or people are not going to like me. So they went into new connections at their job, with friendships, with this idea of I'm likable or I'm not. Hopelessness, they distrust friends, they feel disempowered, they lose confidence, they start showing aggressive behaviors because if things aren't working, they're going to find a way to either cope with it or to become relevant again. Family turbulence, if your child is having a lot of issues with friends, you feel this tension at home. They're gonna bring it home with them, of course. And then their whole world filter is different because of these things. Gotta move some windows around here. There's some stuff going a little bit crazy over here. Okay. All right. One thing that I want you to remember is this is just so important. And this isn't just for friendships. This is for everything, whether it's sports, whether it's they're dealing with mental health issues, whatever it may be, you've got to remember this, that you can't always change the circumstance, but you can help your children to change their thoughts about the circumstance. Now, you may be saying, well, yeah, I can change the circumstance. I can take him out of Girl Scouts. I can change schools. Yes, this is true. So there are times you can change the circumstance, but many, many times you can't change the circumstance. The power comes from helping your kids to change their thoughts about the circumstance and to change their thoughts about themselves and how they're going to react to those situations that are going on. So when girl drama comes up, friendship issues come up, you are going to be the #1 supporter. You as the parent are going to be there and you're going to see the day in, day out. While your child may get professional support, like me, I'm a friendship coach, I'm a teen girl coach. I don't see my clients every day of the week. I only see them for our sessions. But you as a parent, you see your kids day in, day out. You see when things are changing. You see when they're distraught. You see when they're up. You see when they're down. So you're the #1 supporter, which is why it's fantastic that you're here, because you've got to be prepared. You need to know what to say, what not to say, how to say it, how to toughen her up, toughen him up, and also how to create the opportunity to develop the skills that your kids need to deal with all of these things that come up. Because you're not going to be with them for their whole life in the background saying, here, do this, do this. You've got to teach them these skills so that post high school, that they are out there and they can deal with what comes their way, especially if they go to college. There's still friendship issues that are going to happen there. And so you need to be prepared so that you can best support your kids. Now, if you're a dad on here, I will say this. I hear a lot that dads kind of, they tag out when, especially if it's girl drama. If it's boy friendship issues, men will tend to stay in more. And I have to say, I don't blame you if you're in that boat, because it is very intense and there is a lot of dynamics that are going on. But I will also say that both parents are needed, men, women, if you're an aunt or a grandparent who's raising a child, everybody's needed in this process, because it's not easy being a kid growing up. In this world today, there's so many other factors that all of us oldies didn't have when we were growing up. And so our kids they're going through many of the same things with added stressors in there. So while we can understand much of what they're going through, we don't fully 100% get it. We've got to do things like this webinar tonight. We have to do things to learn and to understand truly where they're coming from. Okay, so let's dive into the support models. So there's 4 ways that I typically see parents support their kids. And we're talking about girl drama or friendship drama, but this really goes for everything, but we're gonna bring it in just to this topic for tonight. So there's 4 ways people typically support, and I'm going to go through each of these, but they're dismissive, dramatic, intrusive, and supportive. I want you to think about, as we go through these, which one do you typically gravitate towards? And I want you to promise yourself, or to promise me, that you're not going to judge yourself as we go through these. Here's the thing. If you notice, oh, I am doing that, you should be excited. Don't be down on yourself. You should be excited that you're recognizing it, because when you see that that's something, oh, you need to change up, that's great. Then you've got an action point, something you can change versus just, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I don't know what I can change. We're going to change that tonight. You're going to have some ideas. All right, so here's the first way, dismissive. And I do have a dad on here because what I hear from all the teens I work with, this is often the dads take this approach. Many moms take this approach as well. But yes, so that's why there's a dad on here. But this is basically acting like whatever you're going through, it's really no big deal. It's, you know, the comments like, these girls don't matter. Why are you crying over them? Who cares what they think? They aren't good friends anyway. Why are you shedding tears over these girls? Does any of this sound familiar? And I want you to remember, the parents who are doing this, it's not that they're bad parents. It's not that they don't love their kids. It's that this is just the way they know. And, you know, many loving parents take this route. Everybody, by the way, probably does all 4 of these in some capacity. So, of course, if you're using this tactic, this dismissive parenting technique, it's not because you don't care. It's because you are kind of thinking from an adult point of view, and you're seeing these small things, and you don't think that the birthday invitation was a big deal, or that the friend didn't sit with you at lunch. That's not a huge deal. But here's what the kids tell me. If you use this dismissive way of supporting, your child is going to feel like you don't get it, you don't care, and they're going to stop talking to you about it. One of my clients was saying she was telling her parents what was going on, and they started using this technique. It's really not that big of a deal, honey. Why do you really care? Why does it really matter? These weren't your friends anyway. And that client said, I'm not talking to my parents anymore. They don't get it. She almost had to try to convince them every time they talked about these things that it was a big deal, that she was hurting, that it was, you know, something she wanted support with. So if you're doing this, just remember that it is a kind of a big deal. The things that your kids are going through are shaping and forming who they are, and that sticks with them for life. Right, is this sinking in? Is this making sense? I hope so. If I can get like a thumbs up that this is clicking, I would appreciate that. All right. Hold on one second. Someone said they had major issues with girlfriends early in life, and it was really hard for her, and made her never want to be friends with girls ever again. And still to this day have a hard time letting myself trust females as friends. Absolutely. Absolutely. And as you can imagine, if you are having that feeling, that's something that you can subconsciously pass down to your own kids. So if you're not the only one, I promise you, that's feeling that way. There's others like that too. I hear all the time, girls are just mean, just have guy friends, don't worry about that. But there's the friendships are different between the different genders. So yeah, I totally feel you on that. Yeah. Okay, dramatic. This is the next one. Dramatic is just how it sounds. This is adding to the emotions of the situation. I refer to this as mama drama or papa drama. Again, this is by loving parents, but here's what it looks like. It might be that you're bad-mouthing the other kids in the situation, starting to say how they're so mean, or they're so bad, or so, I can't believe they did that. Adding to it, like, you must be so devastated that they said that to you. While this feels like you're empathizing, you can actually be adding in a level of the emotions. When they hear a parent say, you must be so devastated, guess what? They're like, ooh, this is bad. Yeah, yeah, I'm devastated. I'm really sad. Oh, this is horrible because my mom and dad are saying how horrible this is. So we have to be careful with that. The other thing is asking repeatedly about what's going on. We have to be very mindful that we can ask because we care and we love them, but we don't want all of your relationship to them become about this. And if we think about this, like they have gone to school all day, they've been dealing with this all day, and the first thing they come in, you lovingly say, "Hey, how did they treat you today?" They're like, "Oh, I wanted to forget about this for a moment, but now it's top of mind again." The other thing is you might be crying or yelling about what's going on, not at your kids, but just like, with a big emotion. And then you might become part of the drama. This definitely becoming part of the drama is really at the forefront when we're talking about parents getting into the drama. So many times parents can make the drama so much bigger. And one of the reasons is it pops us right back into our childhood and things that we dealt with in childhood. So if you're feeling yourself get like those big emotions as you're trying to support your kids, just remember you got to bring it in and remember this is about them, not you. And you can process your feelings somewhere else. But when you're supporting your kids, make sure that you're talking about their feelings and keeping yours under control. A lot of times this is also when parents are trying to be friends and become literally part of the drama, instead of being kind of outside of it or above it. We want home to be a safe place too. So we want your daughter to come home or your son to come home, and it's a place of calm rather than you talking about the drama and turning it up. One of my clients was saying that she would tell her mom everything. That is a super close relationship. Excuse me. But what she found was that when she was voicing these issues that were going on with her friends, her mom would take it to heart. And then her mom would begin to hold it against the friends. And it was like the mom was part of the girl drama. So this girl didn't like that. She didn't want to upset her mom, first of all. But also, she sometimes was mad at a friend and wasn't mad at a friend, but her mom was still mad at her friend. So it wasn't helpful. So we have to make sure that we keep some of our opinions to ourselves as they're navigating these ups and downs of friendship. Okay, the third kind of support is intrusive. And I know we have all slipped into this before. I'll raise my hand, I've been there before. This is when we kind of want to take it over. This might be calling the other parents, bringing that other girl over for a get together so they can talk it out, facilitating that talking it out, calling the teacher, calling the coach of a sports team, texting the other girl directly. Yes, some parents have done that. Reading all of your kids' texts so that you stay updated on what the friendship issues are. This all basically comes down to trying to fix it and trying to solve the issues for your kids. And while this makes us feel really good as a parent, like, oh, I've taken care of things, I've protected my kids, what it ultimately has caused, or what it ultimately does, is that it disempowers your kids. Because what it says is, honey, you just sit over here. You're not capable of dealing with this. Don't worry, I'm going to step in and deal with it for you. So again, it comes from a loving place. It makes us feel good, but in the end, it's not giving your kids the skills that they need. There are times to intervene, and we are going to talk about that, I promise, okay? But for the most part, we want to intervene as little as possible. Okay. There was I'll just tell you this because this one is a hard one. Sometimes it feels like you just want to jump in and intervene. But what I've seen many, many times, I'd say from about like fifth grade and on, if you intervene in a way that is the fix it mode, sometimes it can really backfire on your kids. I remember one client, we were talking about what she was going to do, and I said, don't call the school. Like, it's not going to help in the situation. And we met up again a couple of weeks later, and she was like, oh, I intervened. I called the school. I was like, okay, well, I hope I'm wrong. I hope it went well. And she's like, no, you're right. It has not gone well. what happens is, while the counselors have the best of intentions, the parents have the best of intentions, when you intervene in a way that's not helpful, is it stirs up the drama even more. So we have to be really mindful when we do intervene. Okay, this is the one that we all want to do. This is supportive. We've got the glitter and the happy face. We want to lean towards supporting our kids when they're going through friendship issues, friendship drama, or really anything in life. We want to be supportive. We don't want to act like it's no big deal. We don't want to add to the drama. We don't want to blow out of proportion. We don't want to disempower our kids. We want to empower them. So you want to support them and guide them in a loving and compassionate way. If we do that, then they're going to tap into their own strength. They're going to be able to fix it and to navigate the ups and downs. You want to teach your kids how to deal with the emotions of the situation. Resilience is really about bouncing back emotionally, not just bouncing up and putting one foot in front of the other. It's about emotionally being able to process what happens and move forward onto the next friendship, onto the next issue. Because we want your kids to know if a friendship goes bad, we don't want them to collapse. We don't want them to just stop there. We want them to, learn from that situation and move forward, knowing that they're worthy of the next happy and healthy, fulfilling friendship. So here's what supportive looks like. But first of all, wait, I want to first ask you, what were the 4 ways? I want to use our neuropsychology habits, right? I want you to put in the chat box the 4 supportive ways so we can kind of drill that in and get that in different parts of your brain. What were the 4 types? And I'm going to give you just a second while I look at the questions here. Okay. All right. So what were the 4 ways? If you can put those in the chat box. So I know you're listening. So I know I haven't lost all of you, but also so that it can actually get lodged in your brain there. Okay, this, everybody, this is all your kids need. All they need is love. This is the good stuff. And we have it in this really easy way for you to remember, LOVE. This is what your kids need. And this stands for 4 different things that we're going to go through, and I'm going to give you some tips and pointers on how to do this. So the first, well, I want you to put first in the chat box, all he needs is love, or all she needs is love. So we can remember this, LOVE. Super simple, right? It's harder sometimes to put it into action, but it's easy to remember at least. So the first thing we have is L. L stands for listen. So if you can type in the chat box, thank you so much. Type in there, listen. This is the first thing that your kids need. It's the very, very first thing that they need from you, just to listen. No questions, no advice, no labeling feelings, just listening. And this can be difficult for us parents who are so wise, because we have all this stuff we think we can tell them. All this wisdom we can share and impart on them, all this advice. But sometimes we go into lecture mode and we stop listening. And if we ask questions, what we do is we interrupt their train of thought. And sometimes they'll answer your question and then they forget where they were in the story and you don't get to hear the rest of it. So you really have to remember, like, if your kids are coming to you and they are talking to you, just let them talk before you ask them anything. So just zip it, let them talk uninterrupted. And sometimes this is it. This is all they need. They don't need anything else beyond this. Sometimes you'll just see, if you watch your kids, you can see their whole body language. It's like a big, big sigh that they could just tell you and like not hear a lecture. They're very, very thankful. Okay, the next one, we've got, oh wait, sorry, something happened here. What is that showing me here? Okay, we already did that one. Oh, I don't want to skip over this. Listening, one of the things that's so powerful about listening is that if your child is having friendship issues, many times they can feel really alone. They can feel like nobody's listening to them. They can feel invisible. So just listening to them really is so powerful. So that means that you need to put your technology aside, put TV aside, put your work aside, and actually listen. Let them know you are fully listening to them. Your kids know if you're kind of half listening, right? Like you're typing on the keyboard and kind of like they catch on to that and they realize that you're not really listening. And if you don't have time to listen in that moment, say, I'm going to come find you because I know this is important and I want to 100% be listening to you. So I'm going to come find you in 10 minutes or 30 minutes, however much time it is. But don't tell them you need to come back to me. You go find them. And that's very powerful for them. Now, the other thing that is really important, the why of listening, is that many times a lot of the kids I work with have what they call spiraling, or what I call spiraling thoughts. And this is when they go to bed and their mind is just like this, just all over the place. Many times it's going over all the social interactions that happen in the day. So when you listen, what happens is it's like a brain dump. It's like putting everything on a USB. They're able to get all of those thoughts out, tell it to you, and then it's not in their brain anymore. They can just be happy and, a little less anxious and actually go to sleep with an empty brain versus the spiraling brain. So it's extremely helpful on many levels. Okay, the next thing is O, and this stands for offer to help or offer advice. And this would be when your kids come to you, and this might come before the L, sometimes might be O before the L, say, do you want me to just listen or are you looking for advice? Even if they say no to this, what you're doing is you're really empowering them with this question. Maybe they have felt hopeless and powerless and like they have no control all day long. And here you are giving them the choice that you're going to listen to. If they say no, they don't want that advice, you hold off and you don't give it to them at that moment. This in and of itself is helpful. And there's many, many times where your kids are going to say no, but they might come back to you. Now, one of the things I also want you to remember that when they come to you, if they're really emotionally charged up, if something just happened, they just got a text or their friend just said, I don't want to be your friend anymore, their emotions are really high. So what happens when our emotions are big is our logical part of our brain here is offline. So if you're trying to impart your wisdom while your kids are really emotional, it's a waste of your words. It's a waste of your breath. You've got to wait until the emotions are dealt with first. So you want to really deal with the emotional part, just support them, which we're going to talk about next. But you want to deal with that first before any of this, the gift of advice comes up. And just remember, the advice is a gift, but they need to be willing to accept it. So if you offer it up, and they say yes, they're going to be way more receptive than you just starting in on a lecture or telling them what they need to do or should do or what they did wrong. If they're not ready for it, they're not going to connect with you. When they're stressed out, they also have a very low oxytocin level, and that means that they are not biologically geared at that moment to connect with you and to be open to new ideas. So you've got to wait until they're calm and they're more in their logical state. When they're willing to accept this gift, then you can give the advice. In that moment, you don't have to. And so many times I know that it feels like if she would just do this, if you would just listen to me and try this, that it would all be fixed. But we also have to remember that when we were their age, we probably couldn't do those things either. They have to learn, they have to build the confidence, have the life experience to be able to stand up for themselves, to be able to set a boundary, to be able to break off a friendship. Those things are not easy. So often we're parenting ourselves. Like maybe if you were bullied as a kid, you're like, my kid's not going to be bullied and I'm going to have my kid do everything I wasn't able to do. Or if you didn't have great friendships when you were growing up, they're like, okay, this is why I didn't have good friends. I'm going to do this. I'm going to, make sure that you know how to connect, that and you need to do all of these things and life is going to be great. We had to have our own experiences to get to that point. And let's be honest, many of us still have issues that we can't confront people. We can't set boundaries. It's not always with age that we just get these skills automatically. But to take the courage and the experience to get to that, we have to give our kids some grace and realize they may not be ready for that. Now, when we do give advice, when our kids do say, yeah, I need some support here, I need to know what to do, be really mindful of a few things. You don't want to be super judgmental about the others involved in the situation, especially if it's friendship issues, because they may be going through friendship issues, but the friendship still may be a solid friendship. They just need help around it. So things like, how could she do this? She's so mean. That's so awful. How did he ever, say that to you? We want to stay away from those things. That's not helpful. That's not advice. That's just judgment of other people. And remember, if our primary goal is to empower our kids, we want them to think about the solutions. We want them to come up with some ideas. So we can say, like, do you have any ideas on how you might handle this? Is there anything that you want to do about this situation? And if they have no ideas, but they're open, you might say, do you want to write a text? Do I want to meet with them in person? Instead of, you should do this, you should do that, this is your next step. Have them say yes to it, have them problem solve with you. So you're not dictating what needs to happen. You're encouraging and supporting as they decide what they're going to do next. And then we have V, which is for validating feelings. And we have to remember that validating is not the same as condoning. And we want our kids to feel the feelings. You might think that your kid is way overreacting. Never say that, first of all. You're overreacting, because you're going to get an even bigger reaction, right? But you can say, like, I can understand that. Those are really big feelings. So if you're not sure what to say, I'm going to give you a couple of things to fall back on. One is, that sucks. That's it. You're not saying anything. You're not making any judgments. You're just saying, basically, in that statement, I get it. I'm here for you. But you're keeping it short and simple. It's saying I understand without saying I understand. And that's your other fallback. You can just say, I get it, or I understand. With that phrase, though, many kids will say, you don't understand. You don't get it. It's not like when you were a kid. This is different. So that's why that sucks takes away that piece of it. And then avoid saying things like, you shouldn't be mad, she just meant, or you're overreacting, don't think about it that way. That kind of goes back to dismissive a bit. So you want to make sure you're not invalidating your kids' feelings. Let them feel the feels. It's important. The other thing is, don't try to push them and rush them through their feelings. Let them sit in those feelings for a little bit. Not for like days, but let them sit in it for an hour. I actually have my clients create playlists, sad, mad, happy. If they're really sad, I say, go and listen to your sad playlist for 30 minutes. Feel those feelings. And then I want you to put on a happy playlist and feel those feelings, and know that each of those feelings is okay, and you don't have to rush through it. All right, the last one is empower her. This is all the stuff we've been talking about. You want your kids to be empowered. And I want you to keep in mind that as they're going through stuff, you have to let your kids know that you believe in them, that they have the strength, they've got the skills, they've got the confidence to deal with whatever it is that comes their way. It doesn't mean you step to the side and you never say anything. You're on this journey with them, but ultimately they have to know that you think they have this and they can handle this. If you freak out over situations, guess what? Your kids are going to see them as even bigger than they are. And we have to make sure that we are not co-ruminating with our kids. We can't just talk about the difficult issues all the time. Because one thing that we know is where focus goes, the energy flows. If you're constantly talking about the negative stuff, that's how the life is going to become negative. So if they're going through a lot of difficult issues, do fun things with them. Don't make all of your conversations about the difficult things. And this is for friendships, but it's also if they're dealing with clinical depression, clinical anxiety, if they're self-harm, my dog's barking, self-harm, if they're dealing with the loss of a loved one. We need to support them through those, but we also need to support the rest of them. Playing games, watching fun movies, going for a hike, going for a walk, and doing other things, not just focusing on the difficult things that are going on. All right, love. So we've got love as a reminder. We've got love, which is listen. We've got O, which is offer, help, or advice. We've got V for validate feelings. We have E for empower her. Okay. We're getting close to the end of our time, but as I promised, I want to go over when do you intervene and how do you intervene. And remember, you don't want to intervene with all the small stuff. You want to intervene only when it's necessary. And when you intervene, you want to make sure you involve your kids as much as possible through the process, even with your little ones, as much as you can, whether it's them helping to decide what the next steps are, whether it's them going to the school with you or writing a letter or writing down notes about things. We want to empower them, and us as adults taking over the whole situation is not empowering. So we want to keep them involved in the solution. Now, if there's physical harm going on, extreme emotions, ongoing emotions, or escalating, or ongoing situation, I should say, or escalating situation, you may need to intervene. Now, also remember that intervening doesn't just mean that you go to the school or to the coach or to the other parents. Intervention can sometimes mean that you're getting them extra professional support. It may mean that the school counselor is helping. It may mean you have a friendship coach like me. It may mean that you have a therapist. It may mean that you have a mentor. There's all different ways that your kid can have support. And we want to make sure when there's an intervention, the primary focus is on your child. The primary focus is on your child. What does your child need and what is going to help them? Because if your intervention is simply to go tell on someone or to get someone else in trouble, that's not necessarily helping your child. So you need to keep that in mind. And before you step in, recognize your own emotions. You never want to go and intervene with another parent, teacher, counselor. You don't want to intervene when your emotions are heightened because you're not thinking logically. So get your emotions under control, tame those, and then focus on your kids' needs. And then you can go and approach the other person, whoever it may be. If it's a parent, you want to approach with no judgment, with compassion, and seeking a solution. If you're not seeking a solution, there is no reason to reach out. There's absolutely no reason. If you're, think of all the other reasons that you might be reaching out, but if it's not seeking a solution, then it's not going to be helping or supporting your daughter. And also, I want to remind you that many times you're not getting the whole story. There have been so many parents who told me they went to another parent, your daughter did this, your son did this, and blah, blah, blah. And then the other parent said, well, did you know that your child did this? And the parent was so embarrassed because they did not know that piece of information. And it's not that kids are lying, it's that they're telling their parents their experience from their own viewpoint. And, it's true truth. I mean, it's just how they see what happened. Same thing if you're approaching a teacher without judgment, with compassion, seeking a solution. And let's remember that teachers have lots of kids. So while it may seem to you obvious that they shouldn't have let this happen, they may not have seen it. And they may not have the skills to deal with it either. And if it's your daughter that you're thinking, or your son that's causing all the issues, I always get someone at the end of lectures like come and say, hey, my daughter's doing this, my son's doing this. They need the exact same thing that everybody else needs. They need love. They need that support. They need validation of their feelings. They need to be empowered. It doesn't mean you're condoning their behaviors, but it means you're empowering them. If your child is acting out, aggressive, all of that, it means there's something going on that they need support. Okay, before I kind of wrap up for tonight, I want to answer I have a question in the Q&A box. If you have any other questions, pop them in the Q&A box really quick. And also you can always get in touch with me. I'm gonna put my email up here while I'm thinking about it. All right, and we'll also send that out. You can ask me questions that way too. But okay, so here's a question. Is it okay that my 11-year-old daughter doesn't want to make friends or talk to anyone at school? New to the state in this new school, daughter's doing great, but socially needs a lot of help. What can I do to support her? There's a lot of things you can do. Obviously, you've learned a lot tonight, right? Different ways you can support her. There's also actually, I'm a friendship coach, so there's that's an opportunity if you want to get in touch with me. And then there's also from my own resources that I know, I just launched a course on friendships for girls ages 8 to 18 that is art-based. And you can find that in my my Facebook group, or email me and I can give you information on that. That's a really good way to start. Let's see. But to answer the question about, is that okay? Like, what happens with kids who have decided, I don't have friends, I don't need them, they kind of they've given up on it. And it's not that they're just longing for friends, but what can happen is they become isolated and withdrawn. And we know that connections create a better life experience. So there may be an emotional wall that's been put up too, if she's been kind of burned with friendships in the past, or she may just not know, what are the steps I can take to make friends? And instead of being uncomfortable doing that, she's decided it's much more comfortable just to sit here and not have that potential rejection or uncertainty of new friends. Another question here. If my kid's friend is not a good friend, should I make sure they're not in my kid's life? Oh, this is a dicey one. That's a tough one, because this is what I found. If you're pointing out all of the things that are wrong with a person that's your child's friend, your child is going to go into defensive mode and is going to be bound and determined to show you how they are a good friend and stay with them and not tell you any of the things that are happening. So what is really important, if you're finding that your child is hanging out with someone who's maybe not making good choices or doesn't treat them very nicely, is that you're there to support them, kind of very indirectly point out ways that the friendship isn't healthy. And stuff like, hey, I saw that you were hanging out with Danny today. How is that fun? Like, do you have fun when you're hanging out with them? What do you guys do? Like, I heard him say something that sounded a little bit mean. Like, what did you think about that? He thought it was funny, things like that. So try to keep the judgment out of it and get curious, because what you want is for your kids to see the patterns. You want them to see that it's not working for them, and start planting those seeds so that they can start thinking critically about this friendship. Let's see, my daughter's new to the school and country. She's feeling alone because of lack of friends. Yeah. Join my group, please. I know I'm saying that, but this is something that I'm so passionate about. Join my Facebook group, because there's lots of information in there of how you can get support for your daughter and how you can support your daughter, even most importantly. And whether you have sons or daughters, the stuff that we learned tonight is so key about empowering, not trying to take over. For those of you with younger ones, I want you to remember that you're going to be intervening a little bit more up until like about 4th grade. But again, you want to empower your kids through that process of intervention. If you need to go to the teacher or a sports coach or something, you want to involve your kids in that you're lifting them up and having them learn these new skills. Okay. All right, so let me just wrap up by saying this. It is extremely important that we are instilling this idea and this belief that our kids can handle it. Like, there are times where your kids are going to go through moments of loneliness, rejection, difficult times, struggles, and that's okay. We want them to know that all of those emotions are okay, because we know that they can handle it. We're going to be there for them as they go through these things. We're going to listen to them. We're going to love them unconditionally. We're going to be there for them. And we know that they can handle it. Because when we fully believe that, our kids can then fully believe it. But we have to believe in them first when it comes to this. We can't always try to step in and intervene, like, trying to fix everything else in the equation. We just have to support our own kids and lift them up so that they can have the skills they need to build that emotional resilience, because they can do this. And you are her best teacher. You're his best teacher. So you pay attention in your own life. How are you role modeling? Making friends, talking to friends, having a conflict conversation. Think of all of the opportunities you have in life to role model these friendship skills and how to deal with drama, how to deal with conflict. And I want you to remember that your child has the strength to get through whatever comes their way, especially with your unwavering guidance and support. All right, that is it for tonight. And I really appreciate you spending your time with me. I appreciate you commenting in the chat box and asking questions. And I hope that the rest of your year is fantastic and that your kids have so many fulfilling friendships in their future, and that they have you as their guide by their side. Before you leave, if you can just pop in the chat box something that was an aha moment for you, something you learned tonight, or just something you want me to know. I'm going to be sticking around behind the scenes here. I'm just watching comments through. And what a pleasure to be here tonight. I really appreciate all of you. And for Parent Chat, I will see you next year in 2024. All right. Good night, everyone.